The story of Hannah in the Old Testament, we see that in the midst of some of Hannah's greatest pain, there was the promise of great victory, although she did not see that at the time. So, how can we, in the midst of our season of pain, see victory? We'll talk about that right now on Sermon Shorts. Welcome to Sermon Shorts. Pastor Ray, you spoke Sunday using text from the story of Hannah in the Old Testament. It was Mother's Day, so what made you choose that text?
Well, Mother's Day, in short. But honestly, I'd been spending some time in the book of First Samuel anyway, and when I came to that early part of the book, I thought this is a perfect message for victorious Christian living, but also for Mother's Day. And for Mother's Day because it is a story that works for those who can't have children and for those who have had children. And so it is really the perfect text for that occasion. And so that was kind of the motive behind that.
There's something specific you said Sunday that I'd like for you to talk with us about. Let's take a look at that clip from Sunday.
Where you are now does not mean that's where you'll be at the end of your story. God's not finished with you yet. In fact, the truth is, if God were finished with you as a believer, you'd already be with Him. So never believe that where you are now, the season of pain you're in, whatever it may be, is the end of your story. Don't make the faulty assumption that God can't use your pain for something great.
Pastor, this was a Mother's Day sermon, but there's so many broader implications from this. It's easy for people to say, oh, well, I'm not a mother, so this must not have been for me. But especially this point, because so many people find themselves maybe in that spot where they're in a season of pain. What can they draw from Hannah's story to help them see what God may be doing?
Well, there's so many things that we learn from this story. And again, it's one of the reasons it's the perfect text, not only for Mother's Day, but it's the perfect text for all of us as we think about living the victorious Christian life, because we learn so many precepts from how she handled the circumstances that she was facing. And her journey was a long and painful one, of course, as I talk about in the message. But one of the great truths is this idea, and Lance, I've shared this passage in the past in other messages, but the Lord just gave me fresh stuff. And one of the things that just really jumped off the page at me was that where she was at the time she began seeking God about the matter of of having a son, giving birth, was not where she would end up. And our pain is often looked at as, well, this is my life. This is the way it is and the way it's going to be. But pain now is not an indicator of what God is doing or where this journey will lead us. And we have to keep that in mind. But pain is momentary and light. Paul called it this momentary light affliction. He says is working for us and working to grow us and to build us for an even greater thing. And so Hannah's story teaches us that God has so much more. So don't let the immediate pain, I'm not saying the pain doesn't hurt, whether it's emotional pain like hers was or even physical pain, it can hurt. But the bigger perspective is that God can use my pain to bring blessing in my own life, and to bless other people's lives. As this story, we see her pain, but we know, she didn't at the time, but we know that God was working something incredible through her. And that is, He was going to give her a son, and because of her faithfulness to God, that son would become known as the man of God by all the nation of Israel, and He would change things, and He would bring blessing to the people. He would bring the favor of God to the people, all because of this mom who loved God, sought God, committed herself to God and to the ways of God, and God used that pain that she had experienced to bring her to that place where she sought God, and God heard her prayer, and the result was something very good for her, a son. And by the way, she would have other sons afterwards, but a son, but also a renewal, a revival essentially would come to the nation of Israel because of this son that she had. And so what we have to do is we can't get lost in what God is not doing in our view at the moment. God is at work in our pain. And so we want to say, God, help me keep my perspective that because I'm hurting right now does not mean that you're not working or that there's not something in my story that down the road will be very good as a result of this pain.
Right. I think it's just a byproduct of us being human, I suppose. But when we are in a season of pain, whether it's physical or emotional or whatever it may be, time draws out, and it seems to last a long time, even if it's not actually. But when we're in a pleasant period, when we're at the top of the mountain, it seems like it goes by just like that. How can we see time maybe the way God sees it, because he doesn't operate the way we do?
Yeah. Well, you're exactly right. When I'm in a season of pain, my season seems longer than the rest of the world's, and that is a part of our human condition. And I think, Lance, the way we battle through to victory is that we have to believe what the Scripture says. And as Paul said, this momentary light affliction. And he says it doesn't seem light at the moment, but it is in the grand scheme of God's design. It is light and momentary. And so perspective that is based on what God has said, not based on what I feel. Because I always feel that it's taking too long. That God, this ought to be going faster. And whether I know where it's going or not. And so what we have to do is we have to learn to get our perspective from what God says, not from what we feel.
That's good. Pastor, thank you. So if you find yourself in a season of pain, and we all have those seasons at times in our lives, do your best to step back, even in the pain, and see a greater perspective that God sees. Go to His Word, see how He operates, see what His timetable is like, and that will help you see victory later on.